Hi, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of CUNY Uncut, where we talk about anything and everything, uncensored, unedited, and uncut. I'm your host, David Horn, and today we are joined by the founder of the Instagram page, CUNYoutfits. The page has garnered over 5,000 followers since its inception in May of 2022. The founder has remained anonymous until now, but this Baruch Sr. is here with us today, and I would like to give a very warm welcome to Noah Cavallito. Noah, how are you doing today?
I'm good. Thank you for having me, David. This is a really cool experience. I'm excited to get into it.
So Noah, like many other CUNY students, your path to creating this page has not been linear. I wanted to ask kind of how you started out in coming out of high school in the Bronx in 2018.
Yeah, I came out of, graduated high school in 2018, went straight to University of Albany, where I spent my freshman year. It was an experience, to say the least. I'm sure, plenty of people have heard their fair share of stories about Albany. But yeah, spent my freshman year there. It was a fun experience while it lasted, but overall I wasn't a huge fan of the city and the school itself. So yeah, eventually ended up transferring to Lehman for a semester because it's the closest college to me. And I just wanted us like a solid couple months to figure out where I wanted to go after that because I hadn't done much research. I wasn't that sure. And I knew I wanted to go into business, and my dad basically said, like, if you're going to stay in the CUNY system, because I was already at Lehman.
Right.
He basically recommended Baruch, so I applied, got in, and just ended up going. There wasn't as much of a thought process as there should have been probably for picking a college, but yeah, that's pretty much how I ended up at Baruch.
I mean, it's important to try and figure out what your next steps are, and for you, Lehman was a stepping stone for you. I think you told me that you knew it wasn't going to be your permanent end-all be-all option, and you wanted to use it to figure out what you wanted to do and propel yourself forward. But I kind of wanted to ask how your interest started to garner once you were at Lehman, back home in the Bronx, and how it kind of influenced what you wanted to do at Baruch.
Well, my time at Lehman ended right when COVID started. So it was more COVID that was like the main catalyst for me. Before that, I knew I wanted to go into business in some degree.
Okay.
Just because it's a very vague major. You can do a lot with it after you graduate. So I figured it was just the safest choice.
Mm-hmm.
And then COVID came around, and like everyone else, I was locked inside, stuck on social media, scrolling, And I got into, like, this side of Instagram that I hadn't really explored before. At the time, archive pages were big. You saw a lot of brands, especially over COVID, doing, like, just cool projects, like making bootleg shoes, because at that time, that was about like a year or two before Nike had trademarked their shoe designs.
Okay.
Before that, they weren't trademarked. So people.
Interesting. I didn't know that.
Yeah, it was like this cool trend. And that was one of the main trends that got me into fashion at that time. But yeah, at the time, Nike had only trademarked the swoosh on their shoes. So legally, you could take the swoosh off and then put your own logo on like a Dunk or a Jordan, and like legally that's fully your shoe. After like a year or two of people doing that, they eventually trademarked like the silhouette of the shoe. So it's not really possible anymore without getting sued by Nike. But yeah, stuff like that I was exploring and like finding out through social media. And I knew I wanted to do business, and I loved like the marketing campaigns of fashion brands, like these unique ways of showcasing their fashion, or just their art in general. So it was over COVID, it was sort of like the stars just aligned, and I was like, oh, okay, I care about fashion. This is a cool hobby I'm getting into. I care about business. I always loved like visual forms of art, so movies, TV shows. So it just made sense in my head to like try and focus on marketing. And that's why I chose that major specifically at Baruch. But yeah, all of that was sort of like the background for when I eventually had the idea for the account. It was over COVID that I like picked up a hobby in fashion, essentially. And then it was, it was the business coming together. Even before Baruch, when I was at Albany, I even wanted to make a social media account of some sorts. I told you previously, but it was basically like a Barstool type idea,
right,
where it would be focused around the college community, and it would just showcase crazy stuff, basically like Jackass, but for college kids. And I always wanted to do something like that. Never really started it because it didn't feel new and fresh. Like there's already accounts doing stuff like that, like Barstool. So I kind of held off on that idea, but I always had in the back of my mind that I wanted to make a community-based social media account around college. And then, as like my hobbies changed, I realized like that idea started to change too.
Everything just seemed like it meshed together for you. All your ideas just kind of jumbled into one. Was there a moment where you're like, oh, okay, this makes sense. We're going to do this now?
Yeah, I was with one of my friends, actually. We had just gotten out of, we were in Spanish class together at Baruch. We had just gotten out of class, and there's this area at Baruch. I don't know if it's the official name, but we call it the Plaza.
Okay.
It's basically 25th Street between Lex and 3rd Avenue is shut down to cars, so people can sit out there, hang out, and that's somewhat like the town square of the school.
That's your spot.
Yeah. So especially when the weather's nice, I like to sit out there, and a bunch of people, students are usually out there. And I was sitting out there with my friend, and I realized like the people walking down the middle of the path, it somewhat looks like a runway.
Yes.
Like, my God, yes. Yeah, and I realized that, and I was like, that's fun. Like, and I know people love to people watch, like just watch people walk by.
Yeah.
I feel like something a lot of people just love to do subconsciously, even if they don't realize they're doing it.
Yeah, as a Hunter student, I live at Brookdale, which is on 25th and 1st. So every day when I'd come back from school, I would walk through Baruch because I'm like, well, this is my own personal runway right now. And I'd kind of head on a swivel, always looking for people that I knew. But in terms of the goal of CUNY Outfits when you first started it, well, it didn't start out as CUNY Outfits. We'll get into that in a second. Yeah. What was the original concept for the Instagram page?
The original concept was simply to just myself walk around, originally just Baruch, and take pictures of students whose outfits I thought were cool. Because not only I first off thought people would enjoy seeing that, and it gives inspiration. When I took pictures of people, I would ask them where they got their clothes, so it was almost informative in a way.
Oh, okay.
So you can look and see
if
someone saw it. Yeah, if someone saw it and they liked a specific item or article of clothing, they could see where they got it from, and then maybe that's them exploring a new store or somewhere they haven't bought from. So that was the original idea, just a place to showcase cool fashion. And I always admired people who dressed up for school because there's no like award for it, you know?
No.
It's really just for yourself at the end of the day, and I really loved that about fashion. So it was my way of sort of saying like, hey, like, good job for doing that. Like, let me showcase you, basically.
Exactly.
And like, let the community appreciate like the outfit.
I wanted to also ask about Baruch Outfits is what the page originally started out as because you were only doing it on your campus. Can you talk about, I thought it was a very interesting marketing technique, why you changed it to CUNY Outfits within a month?
Yeah, so once I started it, it was, like you said, originally Baruch Outfits. it was just the original idea. It seemed easier to just focus on Baruch specifically. And after like a month, I had gained a little over 1,000 followers. And I noticed after like that month and a half, the following rates started to slow down. And after some research, I was looking at various Baruch clubs that have Instagram accounts, even like the USG account. Pretty much every Instagram account associated with Baruch College, other than the main college account, their followers capped out at around 1,000 followers. They never went above 2,000. So I know there's like 18,000 students at Baruch, but you're not going to reach all 18,000 through social media. That's just not plausible or rational to even expect. So just using that data, I basically assumed that I had reached the max like following I was going to get with just Baruch.
Yeah.
And decided to expand to all CUNY. So that's when it went from Baruch outfits to CUNY outfits.
And it's skyrocketed since then. Now you have over 5,000 followers. You're across all the CUNY campuses, and you've been able to expand it a lot more. You've been doing a lot of collabs and magazine covers. I wanted to ask if there was any notable moments or if you had a certain favorite collab or moment that you've had with the account.
Ooh, I mean, one of my favorites will always be the first magazine editorial we did. We did it, you mentioned he was interviewed here recently with Bronx native. And the guy who runs it, he's actually a CUNY alumni. So the account had I was working on the account. I was focused on mainly just student outfit pictures on campus, and eventually moved towards, I had always wanted to do more like magazine, just more professional style pictures, because the whole idea of the outfits was I didn't edit those pictures. It was just taken on an iPhone, raw image. I didn't want to like give students an unreal expectation.
Okay.
Like I wanted it to be something that looked real and achievable. And so that was the focus of the pictures on campus. But then I also wanted an aspect of the account that was professional, like that could compete with schools like FIT and NYU. Like it fit that almost corporate look in a way. Just a lot more professional. I wanted to try that out. And I got a team of students together to help me with that. And I reached out to the Bronx native guy, and he let us use the store location for the photo shoot. There was
poetry involved too, right?
That was a separate one. So we did a later shoot. But I should include that one too, because that was the first like in-person event I sort of had with the account. And that one was special too. Both of those photo shoots with Amaudi were amazing, because he was super nice to let us use that space and collaborate with him. And it definitely helped like kick off the magazine style for the account.
And I feel like there's inspiration all over the place. I mean, we are in New York City, for crying out loud. Like, there's so much that you see. And I wanted to ask kind of if you see a lot of that influence, and if there's some controversies about fashion in New York that kind of you pay attention to when you're designing the account.
What do you mean by fashion controversies?
Like the Met Gala has been something like high fashion is definitely it's very polarizing in New York City. There's very like two distinct sides. Yeah. There's, low end fashion and then high end fashion. I wanted to ask what you thought about that.
I mean, I can appreciate any type of fashion, I feel. I've noticed with CUNY it's a bit more on like the thrifted side of fashion, simply because CUNY's directed, like, there's not a lot of high income people or whose parents are high income going to CUNY. So we're sort of like the school that, there's you could tell who the kids are that want to dress up. And yeah, just put together what they need to like achieve that outfit. And you don't need a lot of money these days to do something like that. I do think there's like obviously certain brands that are known to be unethical with how they produce their clothing, and a lot of like the behind the scenes with manufacturing and stuff like that. I personally don't like buying clothes like that, but if
Yeah.
it's all subjective. Like there's no hard fact with anything in fashion. So it's hard to judge someone for like
Yeah.
for really anything,
That they wear.
relating to it. Yeah.
There's two different ends to me, because there's the high-end fashion that looks so cool, but like if we're being realistic, it looks so uncomfortable. Like I
Yeah.
can't imagine putting that on and being like, yeah, I'm comfy. I can walk 5 miles in this. Like there's a certain aspect of being comfortable in your clothing, and I feel like you see that a lot more in CUNY.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, yeah, with that high-end fashion that you see on like runways, Paris and New York Fashion Week, those are unrealistic. Like you're never gonna see someone just wearing that on the street. Even, the outfits you see at the Met Gala. But
Yeah, I mean, I feel like a way that CUNY students kind of show themselves through their clothes is through accessorizing.
yeah.
Because one of the big things, I saw this the other day, it was about jewelry. Because there can be high-end jewelry. You can have a $500 Rolex, or I don't
Yeah.
even know how much they cost. But like, people wear jewelry despite how much money that you earn. It's a way of showing yourself and showing self-appreciation. So I kind of wanted
Yeah.
to ask about how fashion does that for New York City students.
I mean, yeah, CUNY students definitely accessorize heavily because it's also something very easy. Rings, you could buy rings for $20 a piece. Necklaces you could get pretty relatively cheap. But jewelry, I think, is a way for people to express themselves in a more detailed way, especially with, jewelry. Like, I specifically I'm wearing two rings right now. One is for my grandfather and one is for my dad. So they're somewhat like family heirlooms. They have a story. They sort of say part of like who you are in a way. And jewelry, that this is just one example. There's others where it could have some like a meaningful symbol on it. But yeah, you usually see accessorizing as a way to, it's like the outfit is the main course and the accessorizing is like how you plate it. It's like the final detail on it. But without that, it just looks like a mess in a way. Like I think accessorizing allows people to add that extra layer of detail, because yeah, sometimes with clothes you're limited in the like persona you want to give. Yeah.
I feel like that's also a big problem today. I feel like people would dress so differently if they weren't completely judged by what they're wearing. I feel like authenticity in fashion is the most attractive thing. If you feel like you're being yourself and that's you, then wear it. Like don't listen to what other people have to
Right.
say. And I personally feel like your page does a very good job of that, because some outfits aren't like, people might not want to go to class on a Tuesday wearing that outfit, but they
Right.
do because that's them. And I feel
Right.
like being genuine with what you wear is truly the best.
Right. Yeah.
So
and that's definitely part of the personality too. Like if that's your mindset and you wear whatever you want and you feel proud doing that, that's what people are going to pick up at first glance. And that's, if that's what you're going for, then great. But yeah, that the outfit itself and how you approach it definitely plays a role in like your personal and social identity for sure.
clothes have so much power if
Yeah.
you want to give it to it, you know?
Yeah.
But at the same time, it could be so simple.
Right.
Like, I'm going to use this example. Like, we've all been playing Dress to Impress recently. Like, don't lie. Like, you've hit pose 28 before, but like something as simple as going on Roblox and sharing fashion like that can be so powerful and bring so many people together. And I feel like your page is just further implementing this into our CUNY culture, which I have to say I really appreciate. But I want to now bring this all home and talk about the account and what like CUNY Fashion is to you.
Yeah. I mean, the account itself is set up to showcase CUNY fashion. And I like to focus obviously on like outfits that stand out to me. And I think, yeah, the whole idea is just to showcase it. I mean, you always think, when you think of fashion in New York City, especially with colleges, you think of other schools. You think of FIT, usually just more high income schools. You don't really think of CUNY, and that was sort of the problem I wanted to like address with the account. Like, hey, there's kids that go here that are like some of the most fashionable kids I've seen in New York City. So yeah, and then in terms of my view on CUNY fashion, that's how I view it. It's sort of, I somewhat view us as like the Mets of the college world. Like
that's a quote. That's a quote if I've ever seen one.
And not in a bad way. I love the Mets. I'm a huge Mets fan. But yeah, we're just sort of like the underdog, I feel, especially when it comes to fashion, just people's perception of us. And yeah, I feel like CUNY fashion as a whole is like this great underdog story of like somewhat like rags to riches in a way. Like, hey, you know, like it's, you don't really see kids showing off, like you said earlier, with designer clothing. So it's a lot of just like showing off your own personality. And I think overall it gives CUNY a lot of personality when you focus on students like that, that are just extremely creative with something as simple as what they're wearing.
Right.
But yeah, that's how I would view it, as like CUNY fashion is like the great New York City underdog story.
Yeah, I'd agree. And although the account has 5,000 followers, it feels like not nearly enough. You should have double or triple that, you know, to showcase how great these CUNY students really are and like what they're wearing to school. And hopefully after this, people are more inspired to, you know, wear more bold outfits or feel like more in their own with their outfits, wear what they want to school. I know I am now because personally, like I feel like I'm too busy to make outfits. I remember my freshman year, I would like put out my outfits the night before and like, okay, I know what I'm gonna wear. Ooh, let me try matching this with this. I'm a big matcher. I like every something gotta go. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And like, I don't mean to brag, but in high school, I did win best dressed in high school. Well, I'll put up a thing of that. That was something. But like trying to find your own fashion, and I feel like there's gonna be some misses. Honestly, I know I've had my fair share of misses. I remember I wore like these loafers with like knee-high socks and like shorts, and it just like was not a good look.
Yeah.
And like you have to experiment. That's the other thing. Without knowing what doesn't work, how do you know what really does work, and how do you know that you feel like your most genuine self?
Yeah, definitely. You have to find your own style. If you don't want to like go, because the biggest problem I had with finding my style was I hated spending money on clothes and then ending up not liking it, so it just felt like wasted money. So I would say like Instagram, any type of social media where you can follow just fashion influencers or creators in any way, especially ones that are more
CUNY
tailored.
Outfits.
Yeah,
follow CUNY Outfits. I wanted to also ask about the page, though, in terms of design. You guys have done a lot of different sorts of things. Can you talk about the graphic design element of the page?
Definitely. That was all done by Milton. He is a fellow Baruch student with me. I'm pretty sure he's a senior. I'm sorry if he's not, but I'm almost positive he is. He's done all the graphic design for us. And we just brought on a new graphic designer too.
Oh, cool.
His name's Marcel. He worked on the our most recent editorial we did. But yeah, Milton has been with us since day one. He designed the profile picture. He's done the cover art for all 20 editorials. He's created any flyers if we needed.
He's done it all
for the account. Yeah, he's super talented, and that's like a main aspect of the account that I wanted to focus on, was like allowing these creative students to have a platform and like allow
exactly
decent community size to like see them.
Well, you're now graduating in December, so I have to ask kind of what's next for the account. This is the first time that you're on camera, but what's next for the account after you leave?
I do have some plans for the account. I would like to grow it as much as I could for as long as I could until it gets, to just be an annoying hobby. But I do plan on remaining like the creative director, like overseeing everything. But once I graduate, I would like to select a CUNY student to sort of like oversee the day-to-day of the account, like a social media director in a way. Because, yeah, like I said, a lot of it is allowing CUNY students to have a platform and express their creativity and their art through the page. So, yeah, I definitely have a lot of plans for the account. I can't reveal much of it.
Oh, he's keeping it on the low. Keeping it on the low.
Yeah. Just to make sure, I'd rather keep things close to my chest for now until it gets closer, the graduation gets closer. But as I start to do things, there will definitely be announcements on the account, and
Okay, and
be fine.
Last question that I got for you, and then we'll wrap up, is what is next up for you personally? We know what's going to happen with the account now, or supposedly, but what's next for Noah?
I mean, the sad answer is graduate and then work until I retire or die. That's life. But the goal is to work in fashion marketing of some sorts. I'm starting in retail at a high-end clothing store in Soho. So
amazing.
The goal is, to work there some, and eventually just try and move up into corporate marketing, whether it's there or another store. But definitely fashion marketing is the end goal.
Okay. Well, Noah, thank you so much for joining me today. This has truly been lovely. I've enjoyed talking about fashion with you, getting into the deep dive of it, and just truly like how fashion shapes you as a human. So I wanted to say thank you for coming on, and I can't wait to see what's next for CUNY Outfits.
Of course. Thank you for having me, and follow CUNY Uncut.
Thank you. Well, thank you all for tuning in. Make sure to check out CUNY Uncut on social media and download the CUNY TV app. And I'm your host, David Horn, and we'll see you next time. Take care, everybody.
Woo.